Welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with me, Bree. So I feel like every time I do this series, it gets more unfiltered and unfiltered. This one might even need a censor or uncensored on it or censorship on it. I don't know, one of the two. Recently I made a post on my own social media and I shared how I was tired of not being able to share my own voice, of not being able to basically make my own decisions on what I want to say, sometimes what I want to think, and that I was tired of not being able to share about taboo subjects, such as the way that I coped with my pain, with my frustration, with the things that had happened, which was the eating disorder. My unhealthy coping mechanism was that up to the point of my last episode, up to that week, I wasn't eating. It was actually so fresh. It was unreal. The reason why I didn't wasn't able to really give an update on what was going on as far as like, how's everything going? How are you doing? Are you eating better? Are you getting your nutrition in? I had no answers because I literally just started. But I feel that since I brought you on this path, I owe you some answers. Well, I don't owe you answers, but I want to give you answers on where I'm at, where I'm going, and how things are. One of the episodes I talked about endometriosis, but I didn't get to go in depth on how intense it can be with endo. A lot of this mixed together created a lot of stresses and anxiety. I do believe that mental health wise, I have a lot to work on or cope with, I should say. There's a lot of pain that I held on to for a very long time that is just finally getting feeled through, right? Because we have to feel through the feelings. Therapy has been very helpful and beneficial. The support system has been amazing. I could never say that I didn't have a good support system. I think that there are a couple of things I really want to share on this episode that I hope we can get to because there's a lot. But starting with the first one, I think anxiety-wise, my anxiety started years ago, probably high school. I think the most traumatic event that happened at that time was that my grandma Kate passed away when I was 15 years old. It was in 2005. I became very obsessive, where I would check the closet every night. I would obsess. Is someone going to kill us at school? Are my parents going to pass away? Just had very obsessive thoughts after that. I felt like I didn't want to go to friends' houses because I was afraid someone in my life would die. This is how my body reacted to her death, just thinking that I couldn't be other place, thinking that I could somehow prevent another traumatic death like that, which you really can't, but I guess I thought I could in ways. So I was very fearful. One of the scariest things about school was that at the time they put in a new rule where if you didn't feel good, you weren't allowed to call home anymore. You actually had to go to the nurse, and then the nurse would call home, which from an adult point of view was a great idea because a lot of people would call home and ask if their family could take them home. But at the time, I was a very skittish, I guess. I feel like I was skittish kind of person. And once I put that in my head, you can't leave without permission. That's when I started to obsess over it. I started to get really sick because I'd psych myself out and be like, oh God, I am not going to be able to leave here because the nurse isn't going to let me leave. I won't have proof that I'm sick. And then I would instantly start to feel sick. Fortunately, at that time, my method of dealing with this or coping with these feelings was taking ibuprofen. I don't even know how I started it, to be honest, because I just know that I took an ibuprofen one day. I had went to school. I worried about the fact that I couldn't leave. I got very dizzy, felt like I was going to get sick. I didn't want to go to the nurse because I never liked saying anything. I barely liked ordering food. It was kind of annoying in some ways for other people, I'm sure. um, but I just decided I'm going to take an ibuprofen. So I did. For me, ibuprofen worked. I was like, okay, I'm feeling not so bad. I got through the rest of the classes. This is okay. It honestly started to become an everyday thing until my mom discovered it at, like, probably through my clothes or whatever, discovered it. Not that she went through my clothes, but like she discovered it in a very normal parental way. Um, and she confronted me, but not like in a rude way. She just said, "Hey, like, what are you doing? Why are you taking this?" And I explained why, and she said that, but that's not what it's used for, and explained, what it can do, what it can affect, so on and so forth. Well, I freaked out in my mind because I'm like, well, what do I do now? That made me feel better. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start taking the ibuprofen, but putting it in my pocket. And then if I can get through the whole day and I don't use it, then I'm being good to my body and I'm not hurting it. And if I need to use it, then I need to use it. That's what I mentally told myself. At the time, I learned about the sugar pill method. And I think that is what I learned of what I was doing was I was thinking that the ibuprofen was helping me feel better when really my mind was thinking, okay, you took this, you're good. So in good parts, I stopped this ibuprofen addiction, but in bad parts, I mean, I wasn't taking more than what was recommended, but the fact that I was taking it every day as a high schooler really wasn't a good idea, especially since, that's such a young time for your system to constantly be having this medicine that it doesn't need. And I'm not saying that people don't need ibuprofen or they don't need to use it. I think that it's just the reasoning that I was using it is what made it the problem. So, side note on that one, my mom was doing the laundry and she'd constantly find ibuprofen in my pockets, but at least it was in my pockets and not in my system anymore. But every time something traumatic would happen, or every time I would be facing my anxiety, which I did not know a total term for it yet. I knew anxiety existed, but it is nowhere near talked about today uh, than back then. Like today, I feel like it's more open and it needs to continue to be open because I think if I would have known what I know now, which is gaslighting myself, but I'm saying I think I could have stopped some of these responses that were unhealthy. Now, I know that I can't go back, but I also know that these are the things that need to be talked about. And I'm not saying my parents didn't do a good job. They did as best as what they could from what they knew. Um, so anyway, I shared this story because this is kind of how my life maps out, where trauma affected me physically. Trauma affected me mentally. And I'm not saying it doesn't affect anyone else. I'm not discrediting other people's feelings or emotions because it's not a comparison. This is just saying straight out, this is what it did for me. Um, so as time went on, panic attacks started to become bigger and bigger. My mom did get me into, I guess, a therapy session. I can't remember because she was also a yoga instructor. She was really cool. I used to go to therapy sessions with her, and she told me that I was like a an elephant in the middle of a crowded little city where you've got all those little outdoor shops, and I would be focused on one thing. So I'd have like a stick in my hand, but imagining as the elephant, and it would be in my little on my trunk, and I'd just be so focused on the stick that I wouldn't realize the chaos it was creating around me. I feel like she gave me this metaphor. I think it's a metaphor. I hope so. Because she wanted me to see that some of the decisions that I thought were helping me, making me feel better, were actually hurting me in other ways, such as my body. All to bring this to light to talk about how the eating disorder has come out. When it came to the post that I posted, I did not start up until that week of the restart. And I said restart because I have had issues with food for a very, very long time. I don't know why it started, but I know it's something that I used as a coping method, but in a very unhealthy manner. And for me, it wasn't necessarily in the beginning because I'd look at my body and think, oh, I'm not good enough. It honestly wasn't even like that in the beginning. It was just hearing what people said, like, oh, you ate this, or you ate this amount, or you're gonna look like this. And so I just kind of took those things and said, oh no, this is what's gonna happen if I don't try to stop it now. I think as time went on, that's when the body dysmorphia kind of developed because I think I've always had this slightly obsessive, compulsive way about me where I'd look at me and be like, oh no, your stomach's getting big, or oh no, this is happening. All of these things intertwine because endometriosis, there's a thing called endobelly. Anyone that is actually suffering from endo all knows what I'm talking about. Basically, you feel bloated and your body shows you are bloated. Now, yes, this is normal for a menstrual cycle, but endobelly can happen really whenever it wants to. So a lot of times when I was worrying about my stomach and how bigger it got or whatever I was feeling, I didn't know at that time either that I had endometriosis. So I bring all of this up because I feel like when it comes to taboo subjects such as the menstrual cycle, anxiety, endometriosis, sex, it's all like, we can't talk about it. Don't talk about that. You know, you'll be a bad influencer. This is not appropriate. And I want to talk about it because these are the things that led me to my healing path. These are the things that led me to today of trying to work on my nutrition, trying to have a baby. Being told to be hush hush about things is what caused me. I don't want to say the full blown cause, but a partial cause of feeling alone. I mean, there's so many things I was told I was not allowed to say. I remember a time in high school, the girls and I were outside, and I think it was like a yearly event to have this huge auditorium event where all the girls would get in there and you'd watch some movie or some presentation on the menstrual cycle. And I'll never forget that one of the teachers said, "Do not talk about this in front of the boys. It's not allowed. If you do, you'll get, written up, or if you do, you'll get in trouble." And to me, I felt like that is a bit stifling because it's not something that we can control. It's part of the human body. But to be told you're not allowed to say something about it to protect the boys, I always thought was hysterical because, especially when you have endo or anybody that has a period, it's fucking painful. So it's funny when you've got to protect somebody from hearing about it. Now, I'm not making this a sexist thing. I'm not trying to get into the sexism. I'm just saying that I felt like those were one of those times where a taboo subject actually need to be more discussed because of the fact that it is normal for the menstrual period. And I thought, why couldn't men learn about it? I mean, maybe they wouldn't be able to understand fully how we feel, but to have to feel embarrassed to pick up the items that you need from a store for your wife, your girlfriend, your friend, your sister, your whatever, that is so messed up to me. Because why is that a bad thing? Now, I know I sound like I'm going on a tangent, and I probably am. And I will say that in my family, it was actually pretty cool where my brother and father had no problem grabbing these items for me and my husband. But I say that, like, these things being told, you can't talk about this, you can't do that, you're not allowed to, say things, it just started adding up. And obviously, that's not the only thing, but that is one of them. And I feel like endometriosis, when I was trying to figure out what was going on with me, so many people didn't believe me. So many people were like, "What do you mean? That's normal to have pain. You just need to suck it up." But tell me something, like when you are in pain so much so that you're balled up. I was naked, balled up in the bathroom, crying and screaming from the pain. That's a regular day for me when it comes to endometriosis, actually. It's like you can't talk about that. That's not okay. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about it because I know I'm not alone in these feelings. I know I'm not alone in uh this. And how can I help someone if I don't share my own experience? How, like, the reason why there's so many people with that 10 plus years of not getting an answer is because we don't talk about it. It's the same with mental health. We don't talk about it. So it ends up getting extended out so long where the pressure starts to build up, because that's the thing. Anything that happens to you traumatically, anything that happens that is upsetting or hard for you, it's pressure. It's just pressure that builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up until one day, poof, you explode. And then everybody's like, "What? How did that happen? I wonder why," So anyway, I'm going to share with you a thing that is important to know. As you know, I've had this eating disorder for a while. I've been up and down. There actually was a time where I was healthy. I had a fitness trainer. I was working out. I was eating 5 meals a day, which was like 3 meals and then 2 snacks. And I was feeling good. I felt amazing. But I fell off the bandwagon. It happens a lot. And I go through these mind settling, these mindsets where I'm like, "Oh, well, if I don't eat properly, then I can't work out, because then if I work out, I'll burn off calories that don't exist." That was the mindset I had, which is how we got here. Actually, that mindset kind of brought out I think, a longer run than I've been on of not having enough food. I think it's been a couple years in the making, to be honest with you, this latest one. I think an eating disorder, it's always going to be a recovery and a battle. But this last time, I know a lot of things affected it. I know that COVID affected it because my fearful side was like, well, I don't want to go outside or go to the gym and catch this thing. I don't want to get sick. So I thought, well, I'll just buy fitness equipment, which fitness equipment went up, of course. And I'm not saying that I couldn't afford it. I'm just saying a lot of things happened that I gave myself excuses for, which created the more excuses, the longer the battle. Up until recently, I was ignoring it. I was just like, well, eventually I'll figure it out, but I'm just going to continue to go with these unhealthy patterns until I got really sick. And I talked about this in my last episode. So if you do want to check it out, it's Unfiltered IV. I talk about what happened and how I got to the point where I am of actually looking into my nutrition again and getting it up and ready. But what I didn't share is that a big part of me working on these things is because, as many of you know, the whole goal of all these things were to have a baby. And I know that my body can't be nourished if I'm not nourishing it with nutrition. And then I learned in therapy that it can't just be about a baby. It has to be for me too. Because if I don't want to help me and I'm only doing it for someone else, then I'm really not learning anything. I'm still doing it for something else and not for me. So as far as that goes, I have started a plan. I'm eating a bit more. It's hard. It's so hard. It's a mental thing. It's so much deeper than just, here, eat this and you're good. It's very mental based too. It's telling myself I am helping my body. I have a healthy body versus, oh, if I eat this, I'm going to get bigger, like going from one to the other. I think that this episode, I needed to share more on this because it's a part, I don't think that I helped say how much your mindset, how powerful it can be, and how sabotaging it can be. And it's yourself. That's what's funny about it. It's yourself. But I've been learning how to redirect my perspective, redirect what I say to myself. And again, I share all this because it needs to be talked about. This is what happens when you're going through an eating disorder. This is what happens when you're going through anxiety. It's facing the raw truth and being like, whew, okay, I'm going to do something about it. Now, when it comes to endometriosis, there was something that I felt I wanted to share that I wasn't able to, or I told myself I wasn't able to, because I thought, oh no, what will they think of this? But then I was recently talking to my coach and I was like, I really want to share this. Do you think it would be proper or okay to share on the podcast? And she was like, absolutely, you can share that on the podcast. If it feels like it's you, why not? So, and then the other thoughts I had on my own were that, what if I could help someone by sharing it? So with endometriosis, and sometimes it's not just endo, it could be really anything involving the menstrual cycle. There comes painful sex. And the reason why I bring this up is because when sex is painful, it sounds like when you think about it, there's a lot of factors of, I want a child, and that's like, oh, but this, and this, right? I've been working on a lot of stuff. But when sex is painful, it doesn't just affect your body. It doesn't just affect your mindset because you start to belittle yourself because you can't do it or you are afraid, so afraid that it's going to be painful, you don't want to do it. It affects your relationship with your significant other because then you feel like you're unable to give yourself to your partner. And for those of you that are related, I apologize for bringing this up, but I need to bring this up because there were so many pieces mentally that were on my mind that were, I guess, just lingering that affected me mentally and physically, and what led to me using this eating disorder as a restrictive thing. Like, it's the only thing I felt I could control. When my dad did what he did with my roommate, when my uh, exes cheated on me, hurt me physically and emotionally and mentally, I was out of control. I felt like I couldn't control any of those things. So I chose food. I restricted it. Um, and so on top of these, there's not like one thing. I'm not trying to blame anything and be like there's only one thing. There's so many different pieces that brought me to where I am today. That are a factor I mean, it's just unraveling all of this stuff, and sex is one of them because I felt like I could not be a whole person that I want to be in my relationship, in my with my loved one. I fucking love my husband. I love him so much. But in so many ways, I felt like I wasn't able to give enough at the time. Now, I have learned ways to cope with the pain of sex, and I know for many of you that do um, face this, there are a lot of coping mechanisms. There are, I don't know if it's called like Kegels, or there's some form of like exercise that they have out there that can help. But what I've learned for me is it's the mindset, because I would instantly tense up before anything would happen, and I'd instantly say, "You're going to be in pain." Just like back in high school, of like, "You're going to be scared and you're not going to be able to leave here." That's how I'm bringing the two together. So a mindset is really what needed to shift. And I share this raw vulnerability with you to say that if you're feeling this way, if you are, going through these struggles, you are not alone. And there are ways to get help. There are coping mechanisms. There's so many coaches and therapists, and there's even animal therapy. There's so many things that can help you get through whatever you're struggling with. But not just for people that are struggling. If you're a person that knows someone is struggling, if you're a person that sees, you feel that you're all right, and you're seeing people around you struggle, just be supportive, be loving, give someone a hug, or just say, "Hey, are you all right? How you doing?" Like, we've got to be able to talk about this stuff. We have to be able to have communication. We have to be able to have a support system. It doesn't matter if you're related or not. You should be able to have a support system. Even if you go into a Facebook group, or you create a sisterhood, or you're a part of a sisterhood, you've got to be able to have something to help you. Because in life, what I've learned is that I learned a lot of these answers later as an adult. And sometimes I go back and try to think, well, what would it have been like if I would have gotten help sooner? But then that's gaslighting, and that's not really, it's not, and then it brings on shame, which isn't really healthy to do. So I don't want to really look back anymore. I just want to be vulnerable and I want to share. And I'm not looking to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not looking to hurt other people or make people feel uncomfortable. But in order for me to continue to heal, I have to continue and share the real truth of it all. It has been a roller coaster ride. I'm not going to not speak anymore. I'm not going to be, dance around a subject. It has to be addressed. It really does, because being a person on the other side of it, finally being able to talk, and I'm not saying you've got to be on a formal platform like this. I'm just saying being able to let it out, that has been the most fucking healing thing ever for me. It's just being able to say, "Hey, I don't feel good. I'm not feeling good. I'm not taking care of myself and I need help." And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying everything is going, you know, a smooth sailing ride, but it's a lot damn better than where it was 10 years ago, even 8 years ago. I'm starting to find myself. I'm starting to feel alive. And I'm finding my fucking voice. And I know I keep saying the F word, but it's just, it is where I am. It is, my conviction is so strong, it's unreal. And when it comes to my relationship, my husband is an amazing man. And eventually I'm going to get to share with you how he came into my life, what beautiful things he's brought into my life, and how amazing support system he's been. But I can't get there yet because we have so much shit that had to be let out and addressed. I'm going to continue to take you on this path with me on this journey. Like I said, I'm going to therapy. I have a coach. I have a nutritionist. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that my goals are going to be reached, and I'm running so hard at them. And it's not just for my future children, but it's absolutely for myself and for my man. And so I would like to dive deeper into, I was going to name this Love, Hate, Sex, and Pain. I would like to dive a little deeper into that next time, but I think I'm going to bring in someone that is also specializes in that. I know for me, I've been learning that for me, the mindset has been what has helped a lot. And not to be too much TMI, but we've already gone there anyway. I've learned that the external toys have been also helpful of keeping my mind off of the pain and just enjoying the experience. Because what's beautiful about love and sex and life is that it's meant to be lived. It's meant to be a beautiful experience. And it doesn't have to be some taboo subject of like, oh, you can't talk about that. Or, oh, no, you can't say this. Well, honey, on the Brie Pod, we're talking about it. And we're going to probably get even deeper. So if you can stay on this ride with me, that's cool. And if you can't, that's cool too. But I have to share this stuff because there are people that are struggling just like me. There are people that are hurting just like me. And there are people that just want to be heard just like me. So with that, I want to say I do not have any affirmations for this particular episode, but except for the fact that you are so fucking worthy. And I hope that you know that your strength, your power, your essence, your worth, your value, all of it, you are deserving. And if you need help or anything, please feel free to reach out or to follow the Brie Pod, because I'm trying to bring the resources. That is my mission and that is my purpose. And I know that's why I'm here. And I know that I can't do it alone. That's what's beautiful about people and collaboration and love and light. So with all of that, if you've gotten this far, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod.